You think you know someone. Their favorite cereal, the way they hum when they're folding laundry, the sound they make in their sleep. You build a life on those details, tiny, ordinary, beautiful things. But let me tell you something no one wants to hear: trust doesn't shatter like glass. It peels. Bit by bit, like old paint, until one day you find yourself staring at the raw wood underneath, wondering when it all stopped being real. I wasn't snooping. That's the first thing I told myself. You never think you're that guy until you're on your hands and knees reaching beneath your own bed for a missing sock and your fingers graze something solid, not soft like cotton, but cold. Metal. Deliberate. It was tucked way in the back, under the box spring, behind a few old photo albums and a suitcase we hadn't touched since Maui. A small black box with a lock, not a fancy one, just a cheap little latch, like something from a high school diary. At first, I thought maybe it was a gift. My birthday was coming up. Maybe she'd been planning something sentimental. Romantic, even. But then I shook it. Heard the faint flutter of paper. I know I shouldn't have done what I did next. I know. But I did. I went to the garage, grabbed a flathead screwdriver, and popped it open. Inside, dozens of papers. Printouts. Each one meticulously hole-punched and organized in a 3-ring stack, like some sad little manifesto. It took me a minute to understand what I was looking at. Each page was a Reddit post. The usernames were blurred out in my mind at first, but after a few, I started to notice a pattern: the same account. Always from the same subreddit, r/surviving infidelity. I started reading. And my stomach turned to ice. They were all from her. I knew it from the details: our cat's name, our street, the way she referred to her emotionally manipulative husband who never laid a hand on her but knew just how to control the air in the room. She wrote that. About me. I read on. Post after post. Stories of how I weaponized silence. How I would sulk after fights, make her feel invisible. How I'd gaslight her into thinking her feelings were dramatic or unreasonable. Except, I never said that. Not once. She said I belittled her in front of our friends. She described a dinner party where I allegedly mocked her job, made her feel small. I remember that night, I toasted her promotion. Everyone clapped. She smiled. What the hell was I reading? I flipped faster. She's lying, I whispered to no one. She's lying. But the stories kept coming. Months of them. Years, even. A whole narrative built online, post by post, upvoted and sympathized with by strangers who offered encouragement. Support. Advice. One person even told her to get a lawyer quietly and leave him in the dark. She responded with a thank you emoji and said, already working on it. I sat there for maybe an hour. Maybe 2. I don't remember. Just turning pages in a box full of ghosts. I looked up and saw my reflection in the mirror across the room. And I swear I didn't recognize myself. That's when I heard the door downstairs. She was home. She walked in like it was any other Tuesday. Keys hit the bowl. Shoes off by the mat. That little sigh she always makes when the day's been long. And I just stood there in the kitchen, palms flat on the counter, heart pounding like a drum I couldn't silence. She didn't notice anything off at first. She called out a casual, "Hey babe," and made her way toward the fridge, humming. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just read a year's worth of digital betrayal in black and white printouts under our bed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She turned around, eyebrow raised. You okay? I stared at her for a long time. Tried to find some trace of guilt on her face, some shadow that told me she knew what I'd found, but there was nothing. Just her usual tired half smile and the faint scent of lavender hand lotion she always used after work. I opened my mouth, but the words got stuck. I'd rehearsed them already, in my head, in the mirror, I found the box. Why did you write those things? Why are you telling strangers I abused you? But nothing came out. Instead, I nodded. Said, I'm fine. Fine. The most dishonest word in marriage. She made herself tea, stirred in honey like always, and sat at the island scrolling through her phone. Calm as ever. I watched her from the hallway, the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, clicking through Instagram while a secret life sat 2 rooms away in a black box she never thought I'd open. And still, I said nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there beside her in bed, her back turned, her breath steady, wondering which version of me she was falling asleep next to, the man who fixed her flat tire in the rain, or the villain she conjured for the internet. Because here's the thing no one tells you about finding out someone's been lying about you, not to you, it's lonelier. It's colder. You weren't even part of the conversation. You were just the monster in the story. The next morning, she got up early and kissed me on the forehead before heading out. She even smiled. That same gentle smile she gave me the day we signed the mortgage papers. The day she said I made her feel safe. That smile felt like a knife now. As soon as the door closed, I went back to the box. I needed to see it again. Make sure it was real. That I hadn't dreamed it up in some fever nightmare. But it was real. And I noticed something new this time, a small envelope at the bottom, sealed. Handwritten on the front, in case I don't get the chance. I stared at it for a while. Didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I sat down with my laptop and typed her Reddit handle into the search bar. It didn't take long. There she was, digital and raw, hundreds of comments, dozens of posts. A full character study of a man I didn't recognize, but who apparently shared my face, my habits, my marriage. She was careful never to mention my name. Never shared photos. But the details? They were close enough. Just vague enough to protect herself but precise enough to damn me. She had people rooting for her. Women saying she was brave. Men saying they'd been through the same and applauding her strength. Someone told her to document everything. Someone else suggested a burner bank account. She thanked them all. And I realized then, I wasn't just an antagonist in her story. I was a plan. I closed the laptop and went back to the envelope. Sat with it in my hands. I wanted to scream. Cry. Break something. But I didn't. I just held it like it was dynamite. Because whatever was inside had the power to end the last bit of truth between us. And part of me wasn't sure I was ready for that. It sat on the table all day. I moved around it like it was radioactive, folding laundry, cleaning the sink, doing things I hadn't done in weeks, because sometimes, when you're standing at the edge of something you can't unsee, it feels safer to scrub tile grout than to open a piece of paper. But around 6 p.m., as the sun started dipping behind the neighbor's roofline, I finally cracked. I opened it. Inside was a single page. Handwritten. Not typed. That mattered somehow. The words felt rawer that way, more intimate, like she wanted it to be read slowly. It said, "If you're reading this, it means you found the box." I don't know whether to be angry or relieved. Maybe both. I started posting because I felt invisible. And before you jump to conclusions, no, not because you're cruel, or cold, or some emotional abuser. That's the version people needed. But it wasn't about you. It was about me. I needed to feel like someone was listening. Even if it was strangers. You've always been calm. Quiet. Collected. And I've always been noise. Loud feelings. Big emotions. You never yelled, not once. You just went still. And that stillness? It made me feel like I was drowning. So I gave that feeling a story. I needed to narrate it, to give it shape. And yes, I exaggerated. I framed it. Maybe even lied in places. I know that sounds unforgivable. But at the time, it felt like the only place I had power. I didn't plan to leave you. I didn't plan to hurt you. I just wanted someone, anyone, to tell me I wasn't crazy for feeling what I felt. If you want to leave, I understand. If you want to hate me, I probably deserve it. But please believe me when I say this, I never stopped loving you. I just stopped knowing how to be loved by you. M. That letter broke something in me. Not anger. Not betrayal. Something else, that strange ache when someone confesses they've been lonely right next to you, in the same room, the same bed, for years. I sat in that kitchen, her letter in my lap, and thought about the woman I married. How we used to sit on the fire escape in our first apartment eating pizza out of the box, making plans. Real plans. Names for kids. Places to retire. Stupid, beautiful stuff you only say when you believe forever is a guarantee. But this? This was a different kind of forever. The kind that comes with "but at the end." I reread the letter 3 times. Cried once. Not the sobbing kind. Just a slow, quiet unraveling behind my eyes. And when I heard her car pull into the driveway an hour later, I didn't hide it. Didn't tuck the envelope away or pretend I hadn't seen it. She walked in, looked at me sitting there with the letter in my hands, and froze. I looked up. We didn't speak. Not at first. Her eyes dropped to the envelope. Then back to me. Her face was pale. "I guess you found it," she said, voice flat. I nodded. "Yeah. I found it." She sat down across from me, but not too close. Like she wasn't sure what kind of man she'd find on the other side of this. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why she lied, or what else she'd written, or whether she really thought I was some kind of monster. Instead, I asked her something worse. "Did you ever plan on telling me?" Her lip trembled. She opened her mouth, then shut it. "I don't know," she said finally. "I think I was waiting to become the version of myself who could." I looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a second, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger trying to climb back into the skin of someone I once trusted with everything. That night, the house felt like it belonged to someone else. We sat in the living room, not talking. Same couches. Same lamp humming in the corner. But the silence between us wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. Like every sound might set something off. I couldn't even hear the clock tick. She sat curled into herself on the far end of the couch, knees drawn up, hands clasped, staring at the floor like it might answer for her. I had the letter in my lap, folded, but still open. Still loud. "I didn't know it would go that far," she said eventually, voice brittle. "At first it was just venting. One post. Then someone replied. Said they felt the same. It felt like, I don't know. Like being seen in a language I didn't have to teach." I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. I started writing more. Each time, it got easier to tell the story. Easier to paint it a certain way. To frame myself as someone who had survived something. Not just a wife with doubts, but a fighter. She looked up at me then, eyes watery but defiant. It didn't feel like lying. It felt like choosing a version of me that wasn't fading. That one hit me. Fading. I knew that word. I'd been feeling it too. For years, if I'm honest. You don't go to bed one night and wake up in a broken marriage. It's slow. A missed look here. A rushed conversation there. You go from, "How was your day?" to, "We're out of milk," and you don't even remember when it changed. But this? This was something else. "You wrote that I made you feel small," I said. "That I controlled you. That I gaslit you." "I know. You made me a villain, Em. To strangers. To yourself. She nodded, wiping her nose with the sleeve of the sweatshirt she used to steal from me in winter. I needed someone to be the reason I felt the way I did, she said. I couldn't admit it might be me. That I might be lost for reasons I didn't understand. Then why not come to me? Her voice cracked. Because you always had the right words. The calm logic. You didn't get mad. You didn't blow up. You managed me. And I didn't want to be managed. I wanted to be messy. I wanted to be heard. I looked at her, the way her shoulders hunched, the way her voice dropped to a whisper like confession. And I hated how much of it I understood. It didn't make it okay. Not even close. But I could see how we got here. Not because one of us was a monster, but because we stopped being safe places for each other. And instead of fixing it, she built a new version of the story somewhere else. One where I was the storm and she was the survivor. I stood up. Walked into the kitchen. Needed a minute to breathe without drowning in the weight of it all. She followed, slow. I'm sorry, she said from the doorway. I really am. I wish I had told you. I wish I had written letters to you instead of them. I turned, leaning against the counter. I don't know what this means for us, I said. I don't know how you come back from telling the world you're married to a man who made you feel unsafe. She nodded, tears on her cheeks now. I don't know either. But I want to try. I looked at her. This woman who had betrayed me in the quietest, most intricate way possible, not by cheating, not by leaving, but by reframing me until I didn't exist as myself anymore. And somehow, despite the fury still lodged somewhere in my chest, I believed her. She did want to try. But the question neither of us had the answer to was, can we? Trying felt more like unlearning than rebuilding. We didn't jump into therapy or draw up some plan for reconciliation. That would have been too neat, too staged. Instead, we started with space, real space. She moved into the guest room. We stopped pretending everything was okay. No more forced dinner conversations. No more reaching across the silence just to keep the routine alive. We treated our home like a ceasefire zone. A fragile pause between the version of us that broke and whatever came next. She started journaling, not online. Paper. Pen. Sometimes she'd leave the notebook open on the coffee table, and I'd glance at a word or two, but never enough to piece anything together. I think that was the point. She wanted me to know she was trying. Not performing. I appreciated that more than I expected. I started walking in the mornings. Just a few blocks at first, then longer loops. I'd pass the same dog walker, the same old man with his newspaper under one arm. Little constants that reminded me I still existed outside of someone else's version of me. We didn't talk much about the box. Or the posts. There was no need, it hung in the air, always. Like a painting no one wanted to take down but couldn't ignore. One night, about 2 weeks after the envelope, I found her in the living room, not crying, just staring at our wedding photo on the bookshelf. I forgot this was still here, she said softly. I didn't. She looked at me, eyes tired, voice steady. Do you want me to take it down? No, I said. I just want to understand how we got from that day to this. She walked over, sat on the floor near the couch. Legs crossed, fingers knotted. I think part of me was waiting for you to fail me. Like if I could prove you weren't who I thought you were, it would give me permission to feel disappointed. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, I said. Not cruel, just honest. I know. Silence again. Then she said, I've been deleting the posts. One by one. I nodded. That's a start. We sat there a long while. Not close, but not far. The kind of stillness that says, we're not okay, but we're not done either. Later that week, I went under the bed, to the place where I found the box. I pulled it out, opened it again. The pages were still there. Most of them. Some were missing now, probably the ones she couldn't bear to let live a second longer. I picked one at random. Read it. This time, I didn't feel fury. I felt grief. Because that post, the way she described me, it wasn't true, not in the factual sense. But I could see the thread of it. How my silence after arguments might have looked like punishment. How my logic, which I always thought was a virtue, could feel like a wall. That didn't make her version real. But it made it hers. And that realization was both devastating and, strangely freeing. We had failed each other in different languages. She with exaggeration. Me with omission. That night, I left a note outside her door. Just a small piece of paper. Tomorrow, let's talk. No filters. Just us. If you want to. She didn't reply. But she came to the porch the next morning. Coffee in hand. Sat beside me like it was a familiar ritual we'd forgotten how to do. Just us, she said. Just us, I replied. We didn't fix anything that morning. We just talked. No accusations. No apologies repeated for the 100th time. No emotional gymnastics. Just two people sitting on a porch, watching the sun rise over the street we used to love more than we loved ourselves. She told me she still woke up some mornings and checked Reddit before checking in with her own thoughts. Muscle memory, she called it. A reflex born out of fear and validation addiction. I told her I still had dreams where I opened the box and found more, not posts, but plans. Escape routes. Divorce papers. We both flinched when we admitted those things. But we didn't run from them. That was new. There was no dramatic forgiveness, no hand-on-heart declarations. What there was humility. Not the kind you offer when you're caught, but the kind that creeps in slowly when you realize the person across from you is still here. Still willing to listen. Still willing to try. She reached over, touched my hand. Not like a lover. Like someone saying, I see you. I remember you. I don't know if we'll make it, she said. I don't either, I answered. And for once, that didn't feel like failure. It felt like truth. A few days later, she came to me with the box in her hands. I want you to burn it, she said. No, I replied. We'll burn it together. So we did. In the fire pit out back. Page by page. No ceremony. No crying. Just the quiet hiss of paper surrendering to flame. Her words, her edits of me, her crafted grief, all of it turned to smoke in the spring air. She leaned into me as we watched the last sheet curl at the edges. I wrapped my arm around her, not because things were healed, but because healing was happening. A slow, unsexy kind of healing. The kind you don't post about. A few weeks later, we made space in our house. Took down photos that didn't feel honest anymore. Put up new ones. Not wedding shots. Just life, us in the kitchen, cooking something terrible. Her holding a cup of coffee, blurry and laughing. Me in the garden, pretending I know what composting is. No more posts. No more anonymous sympathy. Just accountability. In daylight. Some nights we still talk about it. Not in pain, but in reflection. She still writes. But now it's in a journal I'm welcome to read, and rarely do. I still walk every morning. She sometimes joins me. We don't use the word perfect anymore. It doesn't belong here. What we have now is something quieter. Something scarred and patched and honest. What we have, is ours. Just us. And that, after everything, is enough.